Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host. My name is Stunning Steve Barber. And joining me, as always, is my absolutely awesome co host, the intellectual rock star himself, Delicious Dwaylon Davis.
Hey everybody, excuse the stuffiness. I'm getting a head cold, so I'm all congested. So if I sound funny, excuse that.
So, Dwaylon's apparently trying to get me sick. Um, so, um, yeah, it was like this morning when I got up, I had to take my wife to work because of her foot, which, by the way, this is the last day I'll have me doing that because she's been cleared now to drive by the doctor, but it was
Oh,
19 degrees.
oh,
Yeah. So, it's been getting cold in these parts and it's getting cold in your parts and it's making everybody
mm-hmm.
sick.
Yeah,
Ooh. Um, and if everybody's noticed, we have now switched to recording on Tuesdays. It just we kept on having to preempt things on Monday, so I was like, let's just start recording just on Tuesday.
yeah, yeah,
Made a lot more sense, and now we kind of
yeah,
so we're still working on the live thing. I've ran into some snags I haven't even talked to Dwayne about, but um, it has to do with free versus paid. I just leave it at
right.
that. So, and I'm not talking like people paying us, even though that would be nice too.
Yeah,
But but me paying, or us paying for stuff.
yeah,
But I mean, eventually, I mean, we would like to go live because I think it would be kind of a cool improvement, and it may be a hybrid, live and in some
yeah.
cases will be recorded. Just depends on whatever the situation is. But speaking of situations, this past weekend, Survivor Series War Games, a lot of returns. You know, I mean, I thought it was a solid card. Um,
Yeah, I thought it was. Actually, I thought it was a really good show. It was better than some of the preview live events they've put on lately. So
yeah, and I'm glad it wasn't a Raw versus SmackDown thing. It was,
same. Yeah,
yeah, because that was just goofy.
yeah, yeah. Because it's like, oh well, we hate each other, but we're on the same brand, so all of a sudden we hate the other brand. So we're gonna have this brand warfare feud for a month, and then as soon as Survivor Series is over, we drop it and go back to normal. And it's like it never made any sense.
No, and well, and once again, when VKM is gone and now HHH is in,
Yep,
that's what we get is
yep,
a lot better
yeah.
booking. But we might as well talk about the elephant in the room right now, and that was a return of R-Truth.
Yeah, exactly. That was the biggest. That was the biggest return for me on the show was our truth.
Oh yeah.
I was glad to see our truth back, hiding
uh,
behind the couch eating ruffles.
that was. I'm like, that is why R-Truth is a national treasure. It really is.
Exactly. Yep.
Because R-Truth, I mean, he knows he's a former NWA World Champion, but he
Two
knows those
times.
days behind. Yeah, two-time NWA World
Yeah.
Champion. If I ever meet him, I hope to have that belt right there with me because
Yep.
I want him to sign it.
Hmm.
And he knows that those days are behind him. He's already been to the top of the mountain. Now
Yeah.
he's just having fun
Yeah.
because he is one of the funniest people.
Oh yeah.
And I actually watched Raw last night, and they had a segment where Damian Priest, Finn Balor, Judgment Day, they walked in, and
Hmm.
R-Truth was talking. Didn't it? Did you see? What I'm talking about?
I saw they had the clip of it on YouTube. I saw that. That was hilarious.
You fellas, I understand you need a fifth person. I'll be that
Yeah.
fifth person. That was laughing. I was like, see, only R-Truth. I mean, he's the only person I know that in wrestling who could probably pull that off and do it with a straight face without
Straight
cracking up.
face. Yeah. Yeah.
And so R-Truth is a national treasure, and then nobody's really talked about his return. And
Yeah.
I mean, and I get it. I mean, it was overshadowed first by Randy Orton,
Yeah.
and then the other guy, who Mr. CM Punk, Mr. Phil Brooks,
Yeah.
who I'll be honest with you, I'm not happy about it, but not my call.
My thing is, I feel like he's going to have a very tight leash because, and that's the difference between Triple H running the show and Tony Khan. Nothing against Tony Khan, but he's still a young promoter. He's only
Mm-hmm.
been running a wrestling company for 4 years. People forget that when they want to throw all of this shade at Tony Khan, and it's like he's been doing this for 4 years.
And during the middle of that was pandemic.
Doing
So
it,
about a year
yeah,
and a half of that didn't even have an audience.
yeah, didn't even have live crowds, and so CM Punk comes in. CM Punk is, in my opinion, is no different coming into AEW and convincing Tony Khan that he was the savior of that company, just like Hogan and Bischoff went to TNA and convinced Dixie Carter that they could take TNA to WWE heights, and they didn't. All they did was bring in their old friends, get them jobs, put out a crappy product, and about killed the company.
Well, that's one thing we don't have to worry about with CM Punk doing because he doesn't have any friends.
Yeah,
So yeah.
But it's like the promo that he gave last night was probably the most scripted promo I've ever heard him give. I
It,
feel like that. I feel like in that
yeah,
instance, he was saying what he was told to say because there was no AEW reference, which is smart
right.
because there's still legal stuff going on. Because Tony Khan's even said when people ask him, "What do you think about CM Punk going back to WWE?" He said, "Legally, I can't talk anything about
Right.
CM Punk." And I just feel like Triple H is going to be like, "Look, we're here to we're here to do business. We're here to make money. The fans wanted you back, so I brought you back. But we're not going to have any of that crap that you pulled in AEW because if people think that Triple H doesn't watch the AEW product, he's sadly mistaken. If he didn't watch the product, then Cody Rhodes and Jade Cargill would not be under contract. CM Punk would not be under contract. He knows the stuff that CM Punk pulled in AEW. He's not going to allow that, and Triple H is not going to allow that in WWE. He's just not.
The backstage annex that CM Punk's been pulling, get in fights with, yes, they are wrestlers, but they're also some of the executives of AEW, which to me, that's a mistake. No one ever do that. But that's a
It's
story for another day.
Yeah,
But
that's always been that's always been a mistake in wrestling when you put active wrestlers in a position of authority,
right, because
whether it's a booker or whether it's EVPs or what have you. It's not a good idea. It does not mix.
because even Triple H himself, I mean, he was semi-active, but he was still jumping in and even made himself world champion at one point.
Yep,
You know,
had himself win the Rumble, come in at 30, win the Rumble, which that Rumble the title was on the line. So he got number 14 and did about 5 minutes of work
yep.
because he booked it.
And it was a huge people squashed on it then. They didn't want to see it. It didn't
Uh-uh.
matter if it was Roman Reigns losing the belt. They did it just so Roman could regain the belt at WrestleMania. That was WrestleMania. People walked out before the final match.
Yeah, and everybody knew when as soon as Triple H won the title, everybody knew what the story was going to be. It was the Roman Reigns redemption arc, and it's like nobody wanted to see that at all.
And I still remember that particular Rumble because as soon as he walked out, and then of course won the belt, I texted you, and it was one word repeated 3 times. It was a compound word. The first part of
Yeah,
that being bull.
yeah,
So
yep. I remember that.
yeah, and I made a kind of a post on Facebook about it, and because I normally don't post a lot about wrestling on Facebook on my personal
Mhm.
page, but that one I had to because I pointed out he's an executive and he just put the world title on himself,
Yep,
instead of the wrestlers who are actually doing it day in day out.
exactly.
Um,
Like he's done it. I mean, Vince is the owner of the company, has put the WWE title on himself and put the ECW title on himself. Um, when Dusty's done it, Flair's done it, Kevin Nash has done it. Just there's been guys like
Vince Russo.
Vince. I was going, yeah, Vince Russo has done it. It's like that is never a good mix of having people in authority holding championships. It's never a good idea. Even if you're not holding championships, you should not be an active wrestler and have any kind of say so in the day to day activities of your particular wrestling company.
Exactly. And so we knew that was a mistake back then with AEW. And then when Punk got into the physical altercation with Jungle Boy Jack Perry,
Yeah.
it made like regular mainstream news.
Yeah. And the thing is, everybody wants to put the blame on Jungle Boy. Here's the thing, the spot where he looked in the camera and said, Cry me a river, talking about the glass spot that him and Hook did, the spot had already been approved through management. So the problem is CM Punk had a way more pull than he ever should have. So he
Exactly.
thought that he was an executive and was running the show because Tony Khan gave him his own show, Collision. That CM Punk would use that to not have to interact with anybody he didn't like. So he told Jack Perry that he didn't think that was a good idea. Had Jack Perry go home because they got into an argument, nothing physical, but they got into a verbal argument about it. And then when it came time for a pay per view match between Jungle Boy and Hook, all that whole spot with the car with the real windshield in it was already cleared through management. But CM Punk was still mad that it was done, and CM Punk was mad because Jungle Boy looked in the camera and said, "Real glass, cry me a river." CM Punk has taken shots at people on the microphone his entire career.
Yeah,
That's part of what's made him CM Punk is the shots that he takes at people. His problem is he's one of those classic people that can dish it out, but they can't take it.
exactly. Or even like Triple H said back, 12 years ago,
Hmm.
he said, "Yeah, you're all for change, but only if it revolves around CM Punk being the center of
Exactly.
attention."
Exactly. As long as he's the guy. That's why when he came back the last time in AEW, they even catered to him again. And then he had a separate world championship than MJF. He had the so-called real world's championship that he put the X on. And it's like, why are y'all doing this? You have a world champion. You have an excellent world champion. Punk wants to be world champion again. Make him earn it. Don't just
Yep,
say, oh, well, since you didn't lose the belt, uh, just go ahead and defend it. And you get to go to Wembley and defend this bogus world title at one of the biggest shows of all time, just because Tony Khan kept catering to CM Punk. But then CM Punk gets into it with Jungle Boy again backstage and then tries to attack Tony Khan. I mean, that's the last straw.
yeah.
You
I
can't.
don't attack the owner of the company.
I mean, did he not remember what happened to Nails when Nails got into it with Vince McMahon and like snatched Vince McMahon up out of his chair and slammed him against the wall and all kinds of stuff? He was gone like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, nobody's above the boss. You're just not. You and I couldn't do that to our bosses when we
No,
were working.
no, but I say when, when we actually had bosses.
Yeah, when we were working in the office, we couldn't have gone and snatched up our bosses and just, you know, attack them and everything without getting fired, arrested, and everything else.
Oh, believe me, the last two bosses I had in the Air Force, I wanted to, and I came about that close to doing it to one of them one time. It had gotten that bad, but you do that in the military, yeah, you will find yourself probably in
Uh-huh.
jail, and you will find
Yep.
yourself discharged with a not honorable discharge, and
Yep.
and yeah, but I mean, but I also knew I couldn't do it because I have, obviously I have a family to
Exactly.
prioritize, and
Yep.
CM Punk is married. I mean, they don't have any kids as far as I know. And I did think it was actually kind of cool. He did mention AJ Lee last night, and he said she's doing good.
Yeah.
So I thought it was all right. That's kind of cool.
I mean,
Um,
it was a nice, boring, sanitized promo. But when he looked in that camera and said, "I'm home," for me, that was the most hypocritical thing that he's ever said because you have spent almost 10 years talking about how bad this company is, and then all of a sudden they back the Brinks truck up to your house and say, "Here, we're going to pay you this amount of money to come back," because honestly, that's the only option for him. He's burned that bridge in AEW. Impact was interested in bringing him in, but there's no way they could have matched WWE's money,
No.
and they knew it because they were pursuing him. But then when they found out that there was talks that WWE wanted to bring him back, they just kind of backed off because they're like, we can't compete with WWE money. There's no way he was going to New Japan. Those guys would have killed him over there. They wouldn't have put up with any of his crap. And CM Punk's not built for strong style. He thinks he
No.
is,
Yeah.
but he's not.
Well, his two MMA fights proved he's not ready for strong style.
No, he is not ready for strong style. So if he's going to make any money and still be relevant in pro wrestling, he had to go back to WWE. He had to swallow his pride and go back because he still thought that that company couldn't go on without him. And they did, and they've gotten better and better. So if he's there to help younger talent, put over younger talent, then I'll give it a chance. But if it's a CM Punk from, just a few months ago, then he's on borrowed time because, and I can almost guarantee that there's some clause in his contract somewhere to where if any of that kind of crap happens, that contract's null and void. He'll be in breach.
And we've already, I know you've seen the videos that have come out since then and seen a lot of the news reports where all the different wrestlers' reactions to it. The most prevalent, of course, being Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
And our friend Justin from TNC Sports Talk, he's been texting me and he asked me, he said, "Do you think it's a work or a shoot?" And I said, honestly, I personally am leaning more towards it being a shoot because the video, because they didn't know he was going to be returning.
Yeah.
Until
nobody
knew.
Well, actually, I did find out that the guys in War Games found out right before the main event started that he was coming back, that he would come out.
Yeah, they're walking out. By the way, CM Punk's coming back. Oh, well, all right, have a good match. It was like that way they didn't have time to really do a react to it. Because Seth, if they would have known like at the beginning of the night, you don't know, Seth Rollins may have walked out.
Yeah.
And said,
excuse me.
Yeah, dang, dude, get some water. Got some water?
I know. Yep.
Yeah. So I got some cough drops, Halls, Ricola.
Yeah.
But yeah, Seth Rollins, we've seen there's actually a couple of fan videos from different angles that have him, he is cussing at him, he's flipping him off, and I'm like, yeah, that is definitely not a work. That is a shoot, because
I think I'm leaning toward a work shoot. And here's why. Seth Rollins is smart enough to do business with CM Punk because he knows that's high profile. Right now in wrestling, a match against CM Punk is as high profile as you're getting just because of the buzz he has coming back to the company after almost 10 years. Seth Rollins is enough of a professional, enough of a businessman to know I've got to put this aside and do work with CM Punk and make that money. Just like him and Cody are not buddies, but he put his differences aside. They had an excellent series of matches, and Seth Rollins made his money and upped his profile. So, but I do not think Seth Rollins likes CM Punk one little bit. I think he will work with him because for the good of the company and because he's a professional, but I think he absolutely does not like him at all.
I can't
at least him and Cody have respect for each other. I don't think Seth Rollins has any respect for CM Punk, and honestly, I could completely understand why.
And last night, and when I say I watched Raw, I didn't turn it on until like right before 9:00. So I only caught the last 2 hours instead of the entire show. But I did see when Seth Rollins came out, and of course the people were chanting CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, and he said, "Yeah, go ahead, get it out of your system now." Yeah, he said, "Go ahead," and he said something about cheering for that hypocrite.
Yeah, he said, "I'm not wasting any more of my breath."
Yeah,
on that hypocrite. Yeah,
But although I will say this about Seth Rollins has also had personal issues with more than just CM Punk and Cody Rhodes. He's had some other personal. So Seth Rollins is also another one who,
yeah,
has issues getting along with people. And then CM Punk, who very obvious, very open, and it's
yeah,
been seen several times. He has a problem getting along with people,
hmm
and just he'll trash talk him on podcasts. I mean, and he's being serious because he's trash talked Rhino. Of course,
oh
Rhino
yeah,
saying, "I'm going to retire." CM Punk shows up, and now he's like, "Oh well, never mind." You know,
yeah, yeah,
and I liked Rhino in the ring. In the ring, I don't know about him as a person because he kind of seems like you're like, yeah, that's
yeah, yeah,
um. But you have two people who seem to have volatile relationships with everybody, and you put them together. Of course, they're not going to like each other because nobody else, they can't get along with anybody, so they're not going
yeah.
to be best friends.
I talked to my brother about this earlier. I told you this before we started recording. Um, about CM Punk, and it's like CM Punk was hot because my brother said he didn't. He's never seen the appeal in CM Punk. I was a big CM Punk fan because I watched him come up through Ring of Honor, and then I liked him in WWE. The Summer Punk stuff was great. That was in 2011. He was the hottest thing in wrestling 12 years ago. But CM Punk's problem is he still thinks that he's the hottest thing in wrestling because he still thinks that he's 2011 CM Punk and not 2023 CM Punk. 2023 CM Punk has had less than 10 matches in wrestling
That's true. Yeah.
because he's been hurt more than he's wrestled because his body cannot hold up. Some people can take a layoff and come back and be as good or better than they were before. I know he's an exception, but Shawn Michaels did it with a broken back.
Mm-hmm.
Was out 4.5 years, comes back, wrestles another 8, and had a better second run than his first run. CM Punk's not that guy. He was out 7 years. He comes back. He won 2 world titles in AEW with a total combined reign of 6 days.
Man,
It's like, and then he thinks that he's going to be able to keep up with these guys who have wrestled this WWE style for the past almost 10 years while he was gone. I don't feel like he's going to be able to keep up.
no, of course not.
When he wrestles Seth Rollins, which we know it's coming,
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
eventually it's coming. Seth is going to one of two things are happen. Either Seth is going to pull a Shawn Michaels and just bury him out there and just make him look awful, or Seth is going to have to dial down how he wrestles to accommodate the old man because this CM Punk is just the old man trying to get that last bit of glory before he rides off into the sunset. He's trying to get that last big paycheck, which I can't fault him. Make your money by all means. But in my opinion, he's going to be in the way. WWE has been excellent the last couple of years with Triple H at the helm. CM Punk's going to be in the way because he's not going to agree with a lot of the way that WWE's wrestlers are competing because he thinks wrestling should be this way. He's turning into an active version of Jim Cornette, is what he's turning into.
I was actually going to say he's a straight edge Ric Flair because Ric Flair didn't know when to hang it up and thinks he should,
Exactly.
So. Uh,
Is be at the top, yeah.
but
But
it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, and I will say, yes, they're going to get people. People are talking about it. Obviously, we are right now, and
it's definitely going to bring eyes to the product. Which Triple H is a smart man. He knows what he's doing, and he'll know when to cut his losses. So we'll see where it goes.
The video of when his music hit, and of course, a lot of people once the credits started rolling, they showed the little logo, they turned it off.
Yeah.
I've been in the habit of not turning it off for a very long time now.
Same.
Because maybe it's because I've watched too many movies in the theater. you know, where the credits
Yeah.
roll. I've always, even when I was a kid, I always wanted to stick around to see.
Yeah.
I'm like, I paid for this. I'm gonna watch all of it. I don't care if I have to, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching like mid credit or end of the credit, bonus sequences since Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Exactly. You know, when he walks out, you're still in the theater. Go home.
You're still here? Go
Yeah, go
home.
get
Yeah.
get going. But you know, because I want to say when Bray Wyatt returned, that was also
hmm
they were getting
Yep.
ready to roll the and all of a sudden, boom, you know,
Yeah,
it went off the air.
Matt Riddle had beat Seth Rollins, and then he was in the entranceway. Referee had raised his hand, and then the little logo comes up, but then it went dark, and then Bray comes out. So yeah,
Yep. So, um, and Austin Boyer at Wrestling World, he actually said on his podcast he didn't know CM Punk had returned until he started seeing people talk about it on Facebook, and so he had to go look for it on YouTube to
yeah,
actually see it because people had already turned it off. And
yeah.
you know, but WWE, and I don't have any reason to doubt them on this. They said it is their most watched video ever already.
Oh, I don't doubt it
Yeah,
because nobody thought he would ever come back. Nobody thought that he would be willing to come back because he's trashed the company for the last 9.5 years.
yeah.
And nobody thought that they would want him back because he's trashed the
But
company in the last 9.5 years. But Triple H has been able to bring back Bruno Sammartino, who wanted nothing to do with the company forever. He was able to bring back the Ultimate Warrior, who him and Vince had fell out, a decade before. And like I said, Triple H knows what he's doing. He knows where the money is.
have you been listening to the Finisher Wrestling podcast? Because
Uh,
they said the same things.
I haven't listened to it today. I've been busy door dashing today, but uh, those
Yeah,
guys are great.
oh yeah, they are. I mean, yeah, our guys over at Finisher Wrestling, they actually said those they mentioned Triple H, like he brings back people,
Oh
you
yeah,
know, that you would had said they would never ever want to have anything to do with the company again. And I don't know if CM Punk is the most surprising because Bruno, I mean, Bruno, he didn't have anything to do with WWE for what
yeah.
20 years, something. I mean,
20 years, yeah.
and
And I mean, the Ultimate Warrior didn't have anything to do with WWE, and like I don't know, it may have been close to that same time frame. Uh,
let's see, his last thing with WWE was in '96 when he was
yeah,
at
he's
WrestleMania,
he's squashed Triple H.
and then he
Yep,
was inducted in 2014 because he died 2 days later.
yep.
And
So 18 years.
something, yeah,
Yeah,
wow, man, that
yeah,
oh my lord,
yeah.
that
That's
was
what I
that
was
long,
thinking. It
wasn't
was.
it?
I was thinking it was pushing 20
Ooh,
years he got because every time, like every time he'd come back, he'd get fired because he'd want to like hold up the match or he wouldn't show up for house shows and things like that. And Vince was just finally like, just no, I'm done. You're
no,
fired.
yeah. After this, obviously, by the way, here's a check, and you're gone out of here.
Well, it happened at SummerSlam where Savage and Elizabeth where they were the main event where their wedding. Well, before the semi-main event was Hogan and the Warrior versus Slaughter, the Iron Sheik, and General Adnan in a three
That
on
was
two
in,
handicap match.
yeah,
Um, Ultimate Warrior held Vince up. I forget how much money, but
but it was
said
a lot.
but he refused to go out and wrestle the match until he was paid the money. So Vince wrote him a check. He went out there. As soon as the match was over and the Warrior comes through the curtain, Vince is waiting on him. He's like, "That was a great match. You're fired. Get your stuff. Go home."
Gone. And then he came back a couple years later, and of course, pulled the same
Did it.
shenanigans.
Yep.
Went on speaking tours around the country,
Yeah.
you know, and was trashing not just WWF and Vince McMahon, but a whole lot of stuff because
Yeah.
Warrior, you know, he had changed his name to Warrior to Ultimate Warrior. He had lost his ever loving mind,
Yeah.
and
He was a disgusting human being.
yeah,
He just was.
and even Bruce Pritchard has said that on his podcast, and Jim Ross said the same thing. They're like, I don't normally want to talk bad about the dead, but he was not a nice person. He was not a good
No,
person.
no.
Um,
You can't
and
find one wrestler in an interview ever that has had anything to say good about him other than he had a presence about him. Is
yeah,
the nicest thing I've heard anybody say. He said he had a presence about him, and the kids loved him because of the energy and everything.
right.
That's it. That's it. But
But
most people couldn't stand
Triple H
him.
managed to get him back into the Hall of Fame. You
Hmm.
know, that's a separate the art from the artist type of
Yeah,
situation. We know
exactly.
Chris Benoit will never be in the Hall of Fame because
Yeah.
what he did was, you
Which
know,
okay, which is understandable, completely understandable. But
but
are they going to take Sonny out of the Hall of Fame? Because Sonny's in the Hall of Fame.
I was wondering the same thing now
Because
because in
Sonny's
case
son. Go ahead.
she is going to be spending the rest of her life in jail.
Yeah, because she's got 17 years in prison for manslaughter. 10.6 of it is for driving while intoxicated and causing a death, and then the other part of it is the manslaughter
Yep,
charge. And then
consecutive
if she,
terms.
yeah, exactly. So she's looking at 17 years in prison, and then when she gets out, she's got 8 years of probation.
And Florida, I did not know this until I was hearing the story. I think it was WrestleMania was the ones who
Mhm.
actually had the video about it. I didn't know this. Florida does not do like early release.
No, you most of the time in Florida, it's got to be extenuating circumstances in
Mm-hmm.
order for you to not serve your full sentence. So she's going to serve 17 because there's not going to be any extenuating circumstances. You were drunk driving on a suspended license and killed a man.
Three
I mean,
times the legal limit.
3 times the legal
So
limit.
not just a little drunk. I mean, she was all the drunk.
And here's the thing: I understand how it works. That your lawyer's going to tell you to plead not guilty and all that. But how could she stand there with a straight face and say she was not guilty when you knew you were drunk, you knew your license was suspended, you got behind the car, you killed that guy. You know you did. There's no way she could not have known that what she had done to that man. And it's
And
like,
he was a 75-year-old man too.
yeah,
And I don't know how fast she was driving, but I think it was on the interstate, wasn't it?
yeah, uh-huh.
So you got to think, I mean, she had been doing probably at least 65, 70. I don't remember I think Florida, I think the speed limit's 70 normally on the interstate. I
Yeah.
could be wrong, but I don't think it's any lower than 70.
But I mean, she took somebody's husband, I'm sure. She took
Mm-hmm.
somebody's
Oh, she
dad,
did.
somebody's grandfather,
Yep.
you know, because she couldn't sit her butt at home and not drink and drive.
When it comes to drinking and driving, I have no sympathy.
Yeah, I have none,
Yeah,
not a bit.
because I can tell you right now, kind of a personal thing. My stepdad was almost killed by a drunk driver right before our
Mm.
junior year of high school, or maybe our senior. He was killed. He was almost killed by a drunk driver, and ever since then, I've been like, now I will tell people, you need a ride. I don't
Exactly.
care. Give me a
Yeah,
call. I don't care. Give me a call. I will make sure you get home safe, and also make sure you don't get behind the wheel and hurt or kill somebody. And
exactly. And I mean, in this day and age, you can't reach one of your friends or one of your family members. There's Uber, there's Lyft, there's a cab, there's all
mhm.
kinds of stuff. If you need to get somewhere or you need to get home, there's never an excuse to drive drunk. There's just not.
and you're talking just under 30 years ago. She was the most downloaded image on AOL, which was a
Hmm.
huge deal at the time.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. It was a huge deal back in '96. She was the hottest. She was the hottest female in wrestling, and now she's going to be serving more than likely the rest of her life in prison.
not gonna lie, I mean, she was a celebrity crush I had. I mean,
Yeah,
because she was banging. I mean,
yeah,
now she's well. First of all, it looks like somebody ate Tammy Sitch because man, she ballooned up.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, all that drinking will do it to you.
Now all the drink will do it to you, and well, I don't know what prison food's like, but um, and we had said even before she got this, we hope she was managed to get her life together because she was getting in trouble still in New Jersey on
Oh
probation
yeah,
and still. It's
yeah.
not her first time
Um,
in prison, folks.
you think she would have? You think Chris Candido dying would have been the motivation, which he didn't die from a drug overdose. He died from a freak
It was a freak
thing.
thing that happened with him.
Yeah. It was a freak medical thing that happened. But they had long documented history of substance abuse issues. Um, Going back to the original ECW, they went to WCW. They got fired from there because there was issues with behavioral issues because of substance abuse. Um, they went back to ECW, got canned again. Um, they just couldn't stay out of trouble. And then it seemed like Candido had kind of cleaned himself up when he was in TNA in the early days of TNA, broke his leg, and then the blood clot killed him.
Yeah. And, and then now, in the past couple of years, it's been coming out about all of Sonny's adventures behind his back.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, you got to think, there's no way he didn't know because there were so many affairs she was having.
And it was with people in the industry.
Right.
It wasn't her with a random dude at the bar. It was with guys he had to look at in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how could you not know? In that environment, there's no way he could not have known.
Well, Bruce Pritchard even said they stopped feeling sorry for him because they're like, if you don't know about it by now, or if you're not trying to stop it, then we're not going to feel, it's on you.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't happy about it, but he wasn't doing anything about it. It's like, dude, come on. But
right.
So, so she's more likely going to spend because she's 52 years old,
Mm-hmm.
17 years. I mean, it should be 69.
I mean,
So there's a good chance she will be spending the rest of her natural life
yeah,
in
because
jail.
she's not in the best of health anyway because of years of drug use and alcohol use, and then she's going to spend 17 years in prison. So yeah.
Yeah. And,
And
but so as far as the Hall of Fame goes, I
that's my
mean,
thing
yeah,
is okay. And like I said, and I understand from a company and PR standpoint, not putting Benoit in the WWE Hall of Fame. I can say what he did was horrible. It was,
yeah,
oh my God, it was horrible. I can separate the artist from the man because I still enjoy watching Chris Benoit matches because he was
yeah.
such an amazing wrestler. I understand completely in them not putting him in the Hall of Fame, but it would be hypocritical to leave Sunny in the Hall of Fame after she's killed someone.
Right. Because, I mean, they pulled Hogan out of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. They
And
pulled Hogan out. Yeah, they pulled Hogan out of the Hall of Fame. I mean,
like,
they ended up
and
putting him
like,
back in
yeah,
because,
but they pulled him out
but
immediately.
yeah, and it's
And
like she should be pulled. I mean, if that is going to be the basis, Chris Benoit committed murder. We all know that. So did Sonny.
yep.
So if he's not going in the Hall of Fame, then she should be pulled from the Hall of Fame.
Did they pull Snuka?
I don't. I don't think they did.
Well, I think part of that because it never went to trial because his dementia was so bad.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He was not competent enough to stand trial. So there was not
they
a
don't
hundred
have they don't have
percent.
the proof.
They don't have the proof that he did it. Everybody
But
knows he did it.
yeah,
Everybody knows he did it, but they don't have the proof. So that's what's keeping him in there.
if anybody's wanting to talk about, just look up Jimmy Snuka. The whole story's there. It's a long story. You can
Yep.
find Dark Side of the Ring. They did a whole show about it. Yeah, it was pretty. Yeah, Jimmy Snuka apparently he was just a gross person. He really was.
Yeah. I mean, a legend in the business, but yeah, behind the scenes, his personal life, he was an awful human being.
Yep. But we have a feeling CM Punk's also he's been kind of an awful human being. But CM Punk, I mean, I like the way you put it on Facebook and Twitter. If you go to at the Rockstar73 on Twitter or Twix, you can find what Jalen said. But what he said was CM Punk is the McRib of wrestling.
He is because okay, the McRib, which is in my opinion is gross. Not a McRib fan at all. It's nasty. I used like I always say that the McRib is the deadbeat dad of the fast food sandwiches. It shows up once or twice a year, and everybody's like, oh my god, it's back," and then it's here, and then it's gone. This is
Yep.
CM Punk is the McRib of pro wrestling because he'll come in, cause some chaos, he's gone. And then he comes back, and it's like everybody forgets all the stuff he did over here because, oh, well, he's back in WWE. So, yay, yay. Give it time, people. Just give it time. He's going to mess this up too.
Because his personality is one of me, me, me.
Yeah. And
And
his track record speaks for itself. I mean, he walked out of the company in 2014. I mean, instead of having the discussion with management and things of that nature, he just doesn't show up for work. You can't just not show up for work. It's just your job. You're under contract. Your job is pro wrestling. Show up for work. If you're hurt, then go see the doctors, talk to management, all that, but not because I never thought that he walked out simply because he was hurt or possibly misdiagnosed by the doctor and things of that nature. There's been several guys that have been misdiagnosed by the WWE doctor. Mr. Kennedy was one of them.
mm-hmm.
But Punk walked out because Punk wasn't getting his way because he wasn't up here. He was not the focal point. He didn't win the Rumble. He wasn't going to be in the main event. That's a lot of been the chip on his shoulder was that he wasn't the main event. Did I feel like he should have been the main event back
Maybe. I
in
mean,
probably
yeah.
probably
I mean,
should he have been in the main event instead of the Miz? Yes. Nothing against the Miz, but yeah. But he like when Austin left that time and they did that whole thing about Austin taking his ball and went home. That's what Punk did. He did not get his way. He went home like a spoiled little child and was like, well, they're not giving me my way, so I'm just going to stay home. And they're like, okay, we're going to keep working.
yeah.
And they just passed him by.
And when Punk walked out, Steve Austin, he still had his audio podcast at the time, and I used to listen to it. But he actually brought it up, and he put a message out to CM Punk, and he said when I walked out, it was the worst mistake I ever made.
Yeah.
He's like, you need to go figure it out, make amends. Y'all need to work it out. He said because it's going to be nothing but heartaches and headaches for you. And of course, CM
Yeah.
Punk, I mean, he responded by doing his own interview with Colt Cabana. Yep. And then now him and Colt Cabana don't like each other.
No,
they were good friends at one point.
Yeah, he burned that friendship. I mean, they were best friends. I mean, they were from back in the early Ring of Honor days. I mean, they were best friends behind the scenes. They were
both from Chicago.
Both from Chicago. They were tag team champions in Ring of Honor. And then he burns that bridge.
Yep.
And then that thing he said last night on that interview, that promo, where he's like, everybody in the back has been nothing but love, and everybody's happy that I'm here. No, they're not. There is not every single person is happy he's there. And then he looks at the camera and he's like, well, almost everybody's happy about it. And it's like, yeah, Seth ain't happy about it. I'm sure there's some other ones that aren't happy about it.
Some people are speculating that's why Drew McIntyre, he walked out in a huff too, left the arena. But
I don't know because he left before Punk came out.
Right. And so I and that kind of goes with the storyline they're going right now with Drew McIntyre because, it's kind of wild. His angle right now is what CM Punk was whining about, 10 years ago.
Back in 2011, that's what propelled him to superstardom was him complaining about how he'd been screwed over all these years. And Drew McIntyre's doing the same thing, except it works for Drew McIntyre because Drew McIntyre's leaning into the heel side of it. Punk always leaned into the martyr side of it. And it's like,
poor me.
Poor pitiful me. It's, and then Drew's just like, well, I've been screwed over, so I'm just going to take it out on everybody else.
And
but
Yeah, when they announced last night that Seth was going to be defending the title against Jey Uso next Monday,
Oh yeah.
and of course Drew McIntyre lost it and just started smacking Seth around, and I mean
Yeah.
got into it. But I mean, but it's part that one's part of an angle because, like you said, he was world champion finally in front of nobody.
Yeah.
You know,
And
he
then
main
with
evented WrestleMania in front of an empty arena.
yeah, and then in front of his family in Cardiff, he gets screwed out of the title.
Yep,
By the bloodline.
by the
So
bloodline, and you know, so that one, I mean, works because you could say, okay, legitimately, and like said, the Hillbilly Hill always says, a heel in his a good heel in his mind has to justify, be able to justify their actions, and like,
exactly.
and that
And,
that one is like, yeah, you know
yeah.
what, makes
Yeah, and the
sense.
mark of a good heel is to have a legitimate gripe, but handle it wrong. Is the
Right.
mark of a good heel.
Boom.
Because it's like I agree with everything Drew McIntyre said. I like heel Drew McIntyre, but we'll put that aside.
Well, yeah, I do too.
I like everything he said. Just storyline wise, he's going about it the wrong way.
I was looking for my Drew McIntyre necklace that my wife got me last year for Christmas, and man, I don't have it. It was hanging on. It was hanging around the neck of kind of funny. The Ultimate Warrior little statue my wife also got me last year. But I got too much stuff back here now. I need to start moving some of it, including, and I know you have one of these.
I do. I do. Yep.
See, we are like the Wonder Twins.
Yep.
So, but with so I don't think Drew McIntyre, that his, it just happened. That was a just a strange coincidence that he happened
Yeah.
to walk out. And all of a sudden, in living color,
Yeah.
Cult Personality, which by the way, when I was driving today, something about that song actually kind of it clicked. I'll have to make an observation about that. When it came out and apparently they remixed the song, the solo is a little different when they finally got to that. I'm like, that's not the
Yeah.
solo that I'm used to hearing.
Yeah. I don't know why they did that
I don't
because
that
I mean the one he originally used was great. They used the original one in AEW when he was there. I don't know why they remixed it for his return
uh
to WWE, but
you know what? I wonder because every time he goes somewhere, he doesn't. The company has to pay for the license and
yeah,
not CM Punk.
yeah,
So that might be why they because AEW may still hold the license for it.
that's possible. Yeah.
Um, I think CM Punk. I think he picked up that song on purpose, but years ago, because that's what he wants. He wants to be the center of a personality cult,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
He's
yeah,
used that song since he was in Ring of Honor. Like he used it on the Indies. That was his theme song. He wanted to bring it to WWE, but they didn't want to pay the license for it then. Um, but yeah, that's he
that's him.
he honestly believes every word of that song is about him. It and we'll see.
And
Illusions of grandeur.
sadly, I mean, there's some people who follow CM Punk,
Like a
especially
cult.
like a cult, especially around Chicago. I mean, I get it; it's his hometown. Um,
I get it, but it's like you can't ignore the trail of burnt bridges that he's left behind him everywhere he's gone. It's like you just hometown boy or not, you just can't look past that.
right, and I mean, we'll see how it plays out. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen immediately, but I think he will. Eventually, the newness is going to wear off,
Oh
and
yeah.
he's going to not get his way because he thought that WWE was going to collapse without him, and actually, like
Hmm.
you said, they're stronger now.
Yeah.
Now they went through some dips. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they
Yeah.
had some really bad times there for a little bit, but I mean, the bloodline storyline really brought it back up. Roman Reigns having the long the reign of
Yeah.
reigns,
Yeah.
having that. Gunther, the longest, not just the longest single reign. He now has more days as Intercontinental Champion than The Miz. The Miz actually had that record.
Yep.
Gunther just passed him up too.
Hmm.
That's why that match was actually pretty historic, because the two guys with the longest number of days
Yep.
cumulative as Intercontinental Champion were against each other. Um, by the way, I thought that match was excellent, and it was what I
Oh,
thought it was going to
same.
be. I know some people don't really like the Miz, but I think he always puts on a good performance. He does what he's supposed to do.
Here's the thing with the Miz. He did, like you said, he does what he's supposed to do, and he did it in this match. He gave Gunther a fight, but he also put Gunther over
Yep, and
because
tapped.
yeah, and tapped out. But yeah, I thought that was an excellent match. It was good from there wasn't for me there wasn't any dull spots or anything. It was good from start to finish. It was an excellent match. You know, the Miz the Miz more than held his own. And we know about Gunther. He's just amazing. So
And
mm,
you think that the version of the Boston Crab he did, where he put the knee on the head, was a slight nod to Jericho?
could be. It looked like a lion tamer, and
Yeah,
Michael Cole had mentioned Chris Jericho
right.
when the Miz came out. He was like, the only person who has more intercontinental titles than the Miz is Chris Jericho.
And Gunther beat him using it. I mean, it's a Boston Crab. It's modified a little bit, but
Yeah,
I've never seen Gunther use that move before.
haven't
Uh,
either. I've seen him use the crab, but not like that.
Not like that. And so once again, like we've actually said on the show before, Gunther can beat you in so many different ways,
Oh
because
yeah,
he doesn't have one particular
yeah.
finishing move that he always uses.
Well, you look at. I mean, he's beaten people with the sleeper. He's
Mm-hmm.
beaten a lot of people with the power bomb. He's beaten people with the Boston Crab. He beat the Miz with the lion tamer. It's yeah, he's got an arsenal of weapons to use to beat somebody, which makes him extremely interesting to watch because with just about everybody else, sooner or later they're going to hit their finisher. You know,
And you don't
Orton's
know
or
which finisher you don't know what he's going to hit.
yeah, exactly. Most everybody's got one finisher. You know, Gunther has four or five.
Yeah, I mean,
So
he's scary good,
yeah,
and that match was really good. I thought the way, yeah, because eventually we got to talk about some of the other matches
yeah.
that were on the card, but the women's War Games match, I liked it. The trash can spot was a little, to me, it was kind of goofy. That one was like,
Well, the problem
uh,
with it is that Io Scott did that in NXT in the War Games match there, which was actually a much better
okay,
War Games match
yeah,
than this one. This one was good,
right. I
but
mean, it was
not
action packed, but
but it was not as good as I thought it was going to be. I expected more. There
um,
wasn't. I don't know. It's like the intensity was forced,
right,
and
and yeah,
even the whole you know reunion of Charlotte and Becky seemed forced
right.
because they figured everybody wanted that, but it's like, eh, no,
They don't like each other behind the scenes. I mean, they've
yeah,
actually talked about that,
yeah,
so just let them
but
go out there and, be on opposite ends of the victory line,
exactly, yeah,
and they're on the same team. They're not going to attack each other while they're on the same
yeah,
team.
exactly,
Um, and, but the problem with the War Games match, because I thought the men's match was part of this too. And I think this is just kind of one of the negatives about the evolution of wrestling that's happened since the first War Games matches. And by the way, I like how Cody, they were talking about this was his dad's match. This was Dusty
yeah,
Rhodes's match.
yep,
He was the one who invented it. But it's turned into a big spot fest.
yes,
And Io
there's a
Sky jumping off with the trash can on her head. She can't see. So of
yeah,
course there's going to be the other eight
they
women in the
do
ring.
yeah, they do the spot that I hate where
Yes.
everybody's hovering around waiting for somebody to fall on them, and it's like it's not realistic. I'm not standing in a circle of people waiting for somebody to jump off the top of the cage and land on me. I'm just gonna walk out of
I'm
the I'm just gonna
I'm
pull it. I'm gonna
a
pull a
Samoa
Samoa
Joe.
Joe and just
Yes.
walk out of the way.
So
I'm
here she
just
comes.
gonna move.
Nope.
Nope.
Nope,
Mm-mm.
I'm gone. And then, of course, Charlotte Flair did the moonsault off the top of the
Yeah.
cage. Same thing. They all just,
Yeah.
oh, here she comes. And at one point, they're all looking up, waiting. It's like you're killing, what's supposed to be the match. But I
Yeah.
mean, it did have a lot of action. But like you said, it was
It had
good
a lot of
action, but it was
action.
forced.
It had a lot of action, but not good storytelling, because Bailey took the pin, like we
Mm-hmm.
discussed on the preview, but then they didn't turn on her.
Right.
That would have been the
They probably will on SmackDown, I'm going to guess, but
probably, but that, to me, that would have been the perfect time to turn on her, leave her laying, and then there's your feud for the next few months. Is Bailey against Damage Control, or she takes out one after the other to get the EO and the title. It was all laid out for them, but they didn't pull the trigger on it.
they pulled the trigger. Too many stories they knew was going to happen on the night. I'm guessing,
I guess.
you don't take so much. But I
Yeah.
mean, the match, I mean, it did set the pace for the rest of the night. So I was like, okay, maybe,
Yeah, it got the crowd fired up. It just, and like I said, it was good. Every woman held their own, but I just thought it was going to be better than what it was.
Santos Dragon Lee, thought it was pretty good, decent. It was
I th-
kind of a luchador, but not a luchador match in a
yeah,
way.
it was, it was a WWE luchador match. I mean,
Right.
they pulled out some legit luchador stuff, but they also kind of stayed within the confines of the WWE style. Um, I think it was. I love the Dragon Lee substitution.
Yeah.
Um, Hopefully the Carlito thing is kayfabe and he's not actually hurt. But having Escobar attack him makes sense. Dragon Lee, who's looked up to Rey Mysterio, makes sense for him to step in to try to, avenge his honor. They had a much better match than I think Carlito and Escobar would have had.
Yeah. Because, I mean, nothing against Carlito, but I mean,
Yeah,
he's
nothing.
just now kind of coming back. I mean,
Yeah, he's just now coming back. He's older, and Carlito's never done, at least in WWE confines, he's never pulled out that lucha libre stuff.
right.
So Escobar got to show what he's able to do. Dragon Lee has got to show what he's able to do. I've watched him since Ring of Honor. He's a former Ring of Honor World Television Champion. Um, he is, for anybody who knows who Roosh is, he's a former two-time Ring of Honor World Champion. He's in AEW right now. Dragon Lee is his brother.
Okay.
But from what I've read, the company is very high on Dragon Lee. Um, he was in NXT. They brought him up to the main roster. He's been having some excellent matches on SmackDown against Cedric Alexander. So it was a good match. The right person won. Escobar needed
Oh,
to win
absolutely.
to further the heel,
Oh,
and he's just a great heel.
he
He's
is
an
a
excellent
white
heel.
hot heel right now. He really is. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
and
so
and the fact that he's not trying to be a cool heel, when the crowd started booing him and stuff, he's just standing there soaking it in and saying,
yeah.
"I love it."
Yes.
And that's refreshing, because too many heels try to be the cool heel and try to get the fans to like them even though they're the bad guy. No, you're a bad guy. If people like you, that's that's them liking, your performance or your character or whatever. But bad guys don't need to try to be cool. They're
Right.
just
And I'm glad to see. I mean, I think there's gonna be some more good stuff coming,
oh yeah,
for him.
definitely.
They're gonna have something going on against the LWO. Which
Hmm.
honestly, I think the LWO part needs to kind of dissolve anyway, because that's 25 years old.
Yeah.
So
There's been some talk that um he would have his own stable, that they would bring Angel Garza and
ooh,
Humberto
oh
from NXT to the main roster and put them with Escobar.
yeah, back
That
to the
way,
main roster.
yeah, back to the main roster. That way, you've got his group, against Ray's group.
Okay. Yeah, because they're cousins, aren't they?
Yep.
Yep. So bring them back and like legit cousins. We're not talking like Arn and Ole cousins.
Yeah. No, legit
Yeah,
cousins.
like
Yeah.
legit cousins. So bring them. Oh, okay. I'd like to see that because I like those guys. I mean, I thought they were a pretty
Yeah.
good team.
Yep.
And given a little bit more experience, that they could have easily been tag champs at some point.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But the other singles match, Rhea Ripley and Zoe Stark, she beat her by pinfall. It was a clean win.
Clean win. I think it was a great showing for Zoe, especially like spots where people thought she was done, and she would look up at Rhea and be like, "Come on, give
Right.
me more," and stuff like that. But Michael Cole said it best in Rhea Ripley's entrance. He said, "Look in the dictionary for the word star, and you'll see Rhea Ripley's picture there." He's
Yep.
absolutely right. She is. I know I say it all the time. She is by far the biggest star in the entire women's division, any brand in WWE. She is, she has everything. That it factor. She has charisma, mic skills, the intensity, the look, the in ring ability. It's just amazing to watch her. And she's only 27 years old.
And that's the scary part. I mean, so she has a lot of career ahead of her, and she's
Yeah.
already achieved a lot.
You know who she reminds me, just her progression, and reminds me of Orton's, because
Yep.
Orton was that young guy, and then he slowly got more and more comfortable, and now he's one of the all-time greats. And I see Rhea Ripley walking that same path.
And she managed to get herself involved in the men's War Games match.
Yes, she did.
Yeah. Speaking of Orton, which by the way, this match also was a little bit of a spot fest, but um, the whole night they were talking about, is Orton going to show? Is Orton going to show? Is Orton going to show? Because
Yeah.
I mean, they never. Because even on the SmackDown, they said, okay, it's going to be Randy Orton, and of course we thought, well, they're doing that so that Chicago will shut up about CM Punk,
Yeah.
which they still didn't shut up about CM Punk anyway.
Yeah, they still didn't, but it was a smart try. I mean, they
Yeah.
just you're in Chicago. They're just not going to shut up about CM Punk. They're
Well, I
just
mean,
not.
well, Phil Brooks, he signed the contract that morning, so it was still
Yeah.
not a done
Yeah.
deal yet. But when Orton finally did, I mean, of course, right before that, they're waiting. And Jey Uso, I told you weren't going to show. Yeet.
Yeah.
But, all of a sudden, Rhea's music hits. She comes tearing down the aisle, and she's got the Money in the Bank briefcase, and she's
And a
about
referee with her. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I was kind of thinking, why do you need the referee? There's already a referee in there.
But here's the thing. Here's how they mess that up logically. And I know we're supposed to, suspend our disbelief and all that stuff, but she gets down there with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and right as she's about to hand it to the referee, Orton's music hits. Hand it to the referee anyway.
Right.
Priest could have still cashed in and beat Rollins for the title by the time Orton got to the ring. Instead, they stood there for 5 minutes while Orton makes his entrance, watching him. Logically, it's like, Seth's right there. Just cash it in and take the title, and then you can finish War Games.
He's right here. Look, I'll go back and get my gun. See,
Exactly.
Bang, done.
He's literally right there at your feet. But that part didn't make any sense. The standing around, because it's like, it was too obvious. They beat down all the baby faces. Then Judgment Day, they're celebrating, and then they just stop and stand there while the clock runs down. And it's like, he's coming out. He's coming out.
And as weird as technically the match, they couldn't pin them yet because it's not started yet. You have to have all five.
Exactly. So he should have cashed in, pinned Seth, won the world title, and then when Orton hit the ring, War Games started.
Right.
Whether Judgment Day won or lost, Priest still won because he would have walked out as the world champion.
And of course, when Orton came out, a lot of people have been talking about this. Dude is jacked.
He is massive. Like Corey like what's his name? Why am I drawing a blank?
Michael Cole,
No,
Corey
the other one.
Graves,
Corey
Corey
Graves.
Graves.
He
By
was
the way,
like
congratulations to Corey Graves and Carmella.
absolutely. He said because Michael Cole said like Orton was in fantastic shape. He's like, look at him, he is a monster.
Yes.
And I mean, he was in great shape, but and especially for someone to come off double fusion back surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And people were on Twitter, of course. Wrestling Twitter is very toxic.
But I say it's very toxic.
But people, of course, were on there, and it's like, oh, everybody's so happy Orton's back, and he, you know, it's of course he looked great. He got to go in the ring and not take a single bump. Do you not know how the RKO works?
Oh, that
It is a
yeah,
bump every
yeah,
time. Do you not know how the draping DDT works? A bump
a bump.
every time. It's like
And
they're
oh,
not going to ease him in and have him thrown off the top of a cage when he's been out for a year and a half and had double fusion back surgery. The fact that he took all those bumps with all the RKO's and the draping
mhm.
DDTs and stuff like that, I was fine with it. You got to ease him back into it.
And when he hit that RKO on Dominic, I mean,
Oh,
it was so picture perfect.
oh yeah, and he has the best power, the best snap power slam
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen. And there's some great ones. Ron
And
Simmons had a great one. Dustin Rhodes has a great one. Samoa Joe has a great one.
Cody Rhodes is
Cody has
another
a
one.
great one. But Orton has that. I don't know if it's because he's so tall, he's his frame, but that snap that he has when he comes around with it is just it's beautiful to watch.
And one of the things that I noticed, and I'm actually verifying something right now, um, because I was thinking that Damian Priest might also have fallen to this, but Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Randy Orton, Dominic Mysterio, all second, at least second generation wrestlers.
Mm-hmm.
Of course,
Yep.
Randy Orton's a third generation, but
Mm-hmm.
then I was looking to make sure Damian Priest is not, neither is JD McDonough, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
other are the others. But I was like, that says something right there. I mean, I think that might be another reason why the match was so good, because
Yeah.
almost half the people in the ring had
Oh yeah.
wrestling in their blood. They grew up around it. So of course
Yep.
they should have good matches. But
And the
um,
baby faces won, which I'm glad they did because it's Cody's dad's match.
yes.
Cody didn't need to lose that match. Damian Priest got pinned, and they did that right. That Judgment Day didn't turn on him, but the seeds are still planted. Rhea
Mm-hmm.
even said on Raw last night that we don't blame you for losing war games and all that, but it's like, yeah, you do. Y'all are
Mm-hmm.
just waiting for the right time. But the the men's match was good. Spot fest, yes, but
Yeah.
it did a better job of telling the stories because you had Seth and Cody having a tenuous ceasefire, so to speak, tenuous relationship because they have a common enemy. You had Cody worried that Orton wasn't going to show. You had Seth repeatedly telling him, he's like, I trusted you and he's not here yet. So you've got those stories. You've got Drew McIntyre stalking Jey Uso to get his revenge on the bloodline. Then you've got Orton coming back in the mix. And it was good storytelling.
Now the wild RKO with JD McDonough, where they threw him off the top of the cage to get RKO'd,
Yeah.
that one was a little sloppy because that was more or less JD McDonough being thrown and just landing face first.
Yeah. Pretty
They,
much. Yeah.
yeah. And Orton, as soon as he's going, okay, right here, get the spot right here. He was,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, they're going to do this. And then by the time Orton like kind of did his thing, I mean, McDonough was already on the mat. So, but I
Yeah. It
mean,
was
that,
it was
yeah,
too far. It's just I mean, Orton played it off good though, with
right.
the excitement and all that stuff. So it kind of masked it a little bit, but as long as you keep that front angle, because I saw it from the side and it's like, yeah, he didn't hit any of
Yeah, so that neck brace that JD McDonough wore last
that.
night on Raw may be real because
Yeah,
that was woo. I mean, that one was pretty nasty.
yeah.
But But yeah,
But
like, go ahead.
overall, I thought it was a really, really good show. One of the better ones that they put on this year. I still feel like that um, the show in Puerto Rico is still the best show they've had all year.
That one, yeah, was
Uh,
fantastic.
but I think this one was really good. I like the fact that there's not a main roster pay per view until the Royal Rumble. They've got 9 weeks from Sunday, from this past Sunday. I mean, this past Saturday. They've got 9 weeks to build to the Rumble. That is great. Um, the NXT has a pay per view in December.
They do. I did see
Uh,
that.
and my brother told me today that NXT has a pay per view in February in Clarksville, Tennessee. Yeah,
Wow.
because they built a new stadium or so arena or something in Clarksville, and my
And
brother.
Mims no longer lives there.
I know it. I know, and but tickets haven't gone on sale yet. But I told him to keep an eye out for me because I want to see how much tickets are going to be. Because I'd love to do that. Because I mean, I can get to Clarksville from my house. I can get to Clarksville in an hour and 10 minutes,
Okay.
hour and 15. Yeah, it don't take long.
So you're actually even closer. Well, you're about, I guess down to Covington from where I live. And I'm talking about Covington, Kentucky. It's about 45 minutes ish,
Yeah.
because this past Friday down in Covington, the Northern Wrestling Federation, they had their anniversary show.
Hmm.
And they had their Hall of Fame induction with Star Wars Matt and Anthony Bryant. And I'm not familiar with Star Wars Matt as much as what I am Tony Bryant. Tony Bryant's induction speech was actually really good. I mean, I will say, I mean, because normally speeches you just kind of sit there, but no, his was
Yeah.
actually pretty. Not that Star Wars Matt wasn't, but Tony Bryant,
Right.
because he's like one of the kind of at least on screen executives now, but you can tell he does a lot behind the scenes, and I didn't realize how long he'd been in the business. But our buddy, the guy with the most eclectic music taste ever, Great King Titan, actually inducted Tony Bryant.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Tony actually, before the speech, well, when he started giving the speech, he said, "You're Great King Titan normally," he said, "but today you're Nick." And he said, "And I
Mhm.
want to thank Nick, because apparently they're pretty close friends."
Right.
But I will say this: when Titan, when it came out, of course, he's been hurt, like legitimately
Hmm.
hurt, and then his partner
Yeah.
Sean Evans also just got hurt.
Yeah.
He had to have surgery on his hand, on his arm the other day. So
Mm.
he's out for a while.
Yeah.
But when Titan came out, they actually mentioned, yeah, he has been seen for a while. Someone, and it's someone who it's a fan. He's a um, pretty regular member of the NWF Army, but he's the one you've heard the stories about him.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it at that. He all of a sudden starts a chant of "Welcome back, welcome back." Nobody joined in. Everybody looked at him like, "Dude, there's a time and place.
Yeah.
This ain't it."
Yeah.
I mean, because as much as what we're glad to see Titan back doing the speech, it's not about him today. It's about
Right.
somebody else. And everybody just
Yeah.
kind of looked at, even the wrestlers were all like, "What are you doing?" But that's I want to say, it's like, it's like, they say in the movie, Not Another Teen Movie, you can't just start a slow clap anytime you feel like it.
Exactly.
Same thing. You just can't start a chant anytime you feel like it, because I mean, it was kind of awkward. But at the show, Swinger, he lost the tri-state title
Yeah.
back to James Cross. Savannah
Yep.
Sweet is now back because she threw a drink in Swinger's face. I saw it.
Yep.
And then it hit me. Riley is the only face female they have right now.
Yep.
And I asked her about that after. I said, "Do you realize you're the only face female?" She's like, "I am, aren't I?" I'm like, "Yeah, the full time." Because so Savannah now, that's been, now she's back with James Cross.
Yeah.
I said, and Ari Alexander was only here just for this, so she's not full time here.
Yeah.
And she's like, Yeah, she's like, you're right. I am the only baby face. So, but I'll see Riley going against Big Mama this Saturday in Mount Orab. And speaking of this Saturday Mount Orab, if anybody's in this area, you definitely need to come out to the Mount Orab Sports Complex because I'm going to be there selling merch. I was supposed to be doing it this past Friday, but things happened, and I wasn't able to sell anything. But I still have the stuff. I'm going to be selling some wrestling figures. I will take the camera and show you, but then you see the rest of the office, and it's an absolute mess, and my wife would kill me. But I can show you one of the things. This is, remember Sin Cara?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is like one of the figures that's going to be sold, and somebody who we've been talking about quite a bit. This is a CM Punk Elite Series, $110 for this one. This is the most expensive one, I will tell you that. But I'm selling this on behalf of House of Plastic, who has actually sponsored us in the past. Because the owner, he and I have been talking about me doing this, and I didn't pick the figures, he did.
Right.
So in fact, I'll also be selling this one. This is not a wrestling figure. However, if you've ever seen Rocky V,
okay.
Remember him?
Mm-hmm.
One of the funniest people in that movie, in a movie that's not supposed to be funny, but his famous line was, "Touch me and I'll sue."
Yeah.
I love that line. But anyway, so show up at the Mount Orab Sports Complex on, I think it's 100 Day Road in Mount Orab, Ohio. And you can see, of course, there's going to be some great wrestling. There always is with NWF. But I'll also be selling those. It is right before Christmas. Definitely come out. And, especially if you have kids who like them or if you collect them, come on out. So, but I have nothing else to talk about. It's
me either. I've got some more door dashing to do this evening. So
I'm pretty sure you're not going to drive all the way up and bring me some Arby's from Paducah all the way to Ohio.
It depends on how much you're paying.
Well, I looked at the bank account, and we're barely, I can't even get Arby's by myself right now. So
I understand.
Because it's right before Christmas, and of course,
yeah.
So, but we hope everybody enjoyed the show. By the way, you can find us on any audio platform that's out there. If we're not there, to let one of us know, and we will do what we can to get ourselves added. You can also find us on YouTube. You can also email the show at armchairbookingpodcast@gmail.com. We definitely want to get some more shout outs, to Dad World Order and BC Hunter at Wrestling with the Truth. Go check out all their different podcasts. And, this has been, such a fun run, and we're about to wind up 2023. And hopefully, we might be going live here pretty soon. If not in December, definitely in January. I will say that. We'll go ahead and just start the new year like that. Another shout out to Kyle, because like he texted me and said, "Yep, malcontent Punk." It's like, so Kyle's not a fan either. You can tell. So we're not happy necessarily. I'm not even going to say with the minority. I think it's split. To be honest with you,
I think it's split. Yeah.
But we're not necessarily happy with Punk the way it's going to. But we'll have to see how it plays out, because we think it's going to end badly. But we don't have a crystal ball in front of us. We don't know.
Yeah. Right.
So all what I have in front of me is Cherry Cola. And that's an honor of Swinger, because if you hear his entrance music, it's Cherry Cola by the Eagles of Death Metal.
Okay.
And he also had Cherry Cola socks on the other day. He showed me.
That's awesome.
But until we can actually speak again, my friends, I'm just going to say good night and God bless.
God bless.